many singles do we have in the house? I know we had a few married people that snuck in, but have you ever just had a question about a relationship? Singles and even married individuals? You have? Well, on tonight, we are about to have our panel discussion. It is about to be real. It is about to be raw. It is about to be relevant, and it's also going to be uncut. Everybody say uncut. So I don't want you to be shocked by what you hear on tonight, all right? Because our goal is to be as transparent as we can. So let me introduce our panelists. We have Pastor Michael K. Moore, Keisha Sharp, Dr. Brandon Wolf, Dantrell Robertson, Shanice Butts, and Ephraim Sharp. Please give them a round of applause as they come. Now, our panelists are going to introduce themselves, and as they introduce themselves, you're going to see some emojis on the screen that connects with their introduction, and we're going to start here with Pastor Michael K.
Well, good evening, you all. Michael K. Moore, and I have 3 emojis to introduce myself. My first emoji is a man and a woman, I believe, facing each other, has some hearts. There it is. A man and a woman with a heart in between. I met my wife about 8 years ago. Got to know her over a period of 2 years. Liked what I saw, liked what I heard, so decided to put a ring on it. So that's my second emoji. And 2 years later, we had our first daughter. Now we have 2 small daughters. Michael K. Moore.
Wonderful.
Hi, everybody. Brandon Wolf. My emojis are but they really mean 2 things. The first is just me representing who I am. I'm all about inner peace, personal wellness, spiritual wellness. The second, the 3 is me, a cell phone, and a young lady, which is booed up. It's a long distance relationship, so that's why there's a phone between us. You know, shout out to FaceTime.
He booed up. Keisha.
Hello, everyone. Good to see you tonight. Thank you for coming out, singles. I am Keisha Sharp, and they will be putting the emoji up in just a second, but I'm recently turned 46 years old, and 46 is the new 20.
All right.
Well.
Because we just get better with time.
Yes.
Amen?
Yes.
So my emoji, and I'll just talk until it gets up there, is I'm single. I am available. And it's amazing to be at this point to be able to say that. Professionally, I'm a veteran communicator, but I am divorced. But you know, God is a God of another chance, a second, a third, and fourth chance. So let my story encourage you. And God is not done with me yet, but guess what? He's not done with you yet either.
Did she just preach? Okay. Shanice.
I feel like we need to pass the offering plate, amen? All right, hello everyone. My name is Shanice. I am 25 years old, and hey. So I have 3 emojis. The first one is the woman with the crown on her head because I'm a daughter of the king and I know who I am. The second one is the hair flip because I'm a girl boss, I'm a career woman, entrepreneur, and I just feel like everybody hair flip one time. And the third one is the dancing woman because I like to have fun and because I'm single and ready to mingle.
All right, okay. Dantrell.
Praise the Lord, everybody. My name is Dantrell Robinson. I am a member of Faith Chapel, this amazing ministry. And I have 3 emojis. The first one is a crown. I have to remind myself who God says I am, because sometimes the world tells us, especially black men, we're something else. Sometimes I tell myself I'm something else. So the king crown reminds me of who God says I am, that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, that I am the head, not the tail, all that good stuff. The next one is a piano because I am a musician and I love music and I love what it does for us. And then the last one, Wakanda forever.
Ephraim.
Good evening. Good evening. Hello? You hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. My name is Ephraim Sharp, member here at Faith Chapel. I am a teacher and I'm a widower. I have two emojis. The first, I'll start with the second one. The second one shows me with a laptop in front of me because I'm a computer guy. I teach computer science at a college. And the first one shows me hand in hand with a woman because I am currently engaged.
What I love is that you're going to hear from a variety of individuals, from married to divorced to single to a widower. And so our first question, I know Shanice says she's single and ready to mingle, but we don't want to just jump out there, right? So our first question, I'm going to direct it to you, Ephraim. I know you're going through the dating process. You're now newly engaged. So what does dating the right way look like? What does dating the right way look like? Talk real loud.
Well, I think I saw a minister on television 10 years ago talk about husband and wife relationships, and he was speaking about a triangle. He said, if you imagine a triangle with God at the top, the husband and wife at the bottom, if you imagine the two of them, the husband and wife, moving closer to God, at the same time they're moving closer to each other. So I think the key there is if you have two people who are serious about their own individual relationships with God before they get involved with someone else, and they maintain that as they get involved with someone else. Now you have two people who move closer to God, but at the same time closer to each other. I think if the relationship looks like that spiritually, that's going to help it to look the way it should look in every other area. So if that foundation is there, they're both moving closer to Him, that's going to help it to correct any way it looks in which it should look in all these other areas in terms of how they relate to one another, arguments, disagreements. That'll help to rectify any ways in which it looks the way it should look if that look is there as a foundation.
Okay, so the backdrop, I want someone to answer this question. So if they're both moving closer to God, well, what happens when someone is not moving closer to God? What's your approach to that one?
Red flag, reevaluate. And here's the thing, to me, dating, biblical courtship is about getting information. And sometimes I think that we can be afraid to say, you know what, let's just back up. Let's see if you're going to work on that issue, because it doesn't mean that God is, obviously God is a God of mercy, so God doesn't throw us away when we have issues. But you give that person a chance to work on it. If it works, you go forward. If they do, you go forward. Or if not, you step back. And the person could be you. You may not be ready.
Yeah. Okay. That's good? You good?
No, it's not good. I think that it's she said red flag, right? And I think that may be jumping the gun because they may not be close to God because they don't know how. I've encountered people that, and I was that person at one time where you want to get closer, but I'm not sure, or I was taught a different way, or I was burned in church, or I don't want to do the whole God thing. So what it is, it can be an opportunity to communicate, which is what seems to be missing in relationships in general, is that the opportunity to communicate. Now, if you communicate and it's just like, yo, I'm not doing that with you, then, okay, now it's a red flag. But I think it's an opportunity to kind of peel that layer off and say, okay, why?
But I also think, I'm so sorry. I also think we need to be cognizant of the fact of, does a person that does not know how to get closer to God need to be focusing on getting closer to you? Or do they need to step back out of the relationship and work on their relationship with God first? Maybe find that foundation, find things that they're passionate about, and then maybe return to that relationship.
Okay, so Shanice, since you just answered that question, so I want to direct the next question to you. What's a deal breaker and a deal maker?
Okay. I would say a deal breaker would be someone who, for me, does not have ambition, someone that's not compassionate, someone that does not have a relationship with Christ, right, and that there's fruit there in that area. I always say that a good woman doesn't need a man with everything, but a good woman needs a man with ambition. So I feel like if you don't have any passion and drive and ambition behind that, to me, that's a deal breaker. I'm a little turned off by that. But I would say a deal maker is Definitely somebody that's fun. I like to go out and have fun. So if we can go watch a game, and then if we can go to the gym and work out, but then if we can come to church on Sunday too, I think somebody that's versatile that I can actually do life with, and life in different capacities, for sure.
Wonderful. Okay. Brandon or Pastor K?
You go ahead, go first.
Okay. I'll answer the deal maker first. I think chemistry plays a big part of it. Do I have chemistry with the person? Just is there an attraction? But you can have chemistry with a ton of people. So chemistry, I think, is not all of what you build it on. Do I have a connection with them? Do we share similar interests? I think a deal breaker would be a person for me who doesn't respond to the truth when the light of truth comes. So I brought a lot of bad habits into my dating relationship. My wife is older than me, so she matured a lot faster than me. One of those instances was we had one of our first arguments, and I just, okay, fine. So I just hung up the phone in her face, bringing up a lot of junk from my past relationship. So I was waiting on her to call back. She never did. And so I finally decided to reach out to her, and she asked me what happened. Well, anyway, long story short, I told her, well, yeah, I hung up in your face. And she told me that she was a grown woman, and that if that ever happened again, that would be the end of the relationship. That would be a deal breaker. And so I was very immature kind of coming into the relationship, but my point of being a deal breaker would have been how I responded to that truth. I was immature. She should have cut it off if I hung up in her face again because it was disrespectful. But I think I still had a shot because of how I responded to her, and I hadn't hung up in her face then. So just how does the person respond when truth comes their way? Is the problem in the room? Does the person own the truth? Or do they own their truth and make the adjustment? Or is the problem always outside of themselves? And if it's always outside of themselves, you can't fix a person who doesn't want to accept truth.
Can we give Michelle Moore a round of applause?
All right.
The reason why I say that is so key because sometimes we're so desperate for relationships that we just accept anything, right? So I do commend you for that. Represent, girl. All right, so our next question is this right here. I'm going to direct this to you, Dr. Brandon. What is considered doing too much, too fast when dating? What is considered doing too much, too fast when dating? Because you know, sometimes on our first date, we holding hands, kissing, and move in by the third week. So, what is considered doing too much, too fast?
I think it all starts in the mind. I think you're doing too much, too fast, too soon. The moment you find yourself falling in love with your ideal perception of where you think where you want them to be. And as a result, you kind of take this fantasy and you fall in love with their potential, and then you begin committing to that potential, and I'm just gonna call it for what it is, giving marital benefits to single relationships. So, you're stepping way above and beyond.
Can you give an example of that?
Oh man, okay. Now I'm gonna just be real. Like in college, when you get to college, right, the fascination of just being out alone and having your own place, right? So you find somebody, she's cute, you like, okay, well, you want to spend a night? Because, you want to wake up, you're like, dude's like, I want to see what she's like in the morning when she wakes up. We think that's sexy, that's intimate, but really no, you're doing too much too soon. And, as you get older as a man, I could definitely attest to this, is that men love women who set the standard and hold the standard. So when you challenge him and like a dude's like, you want to spend the night, you're like, nah, brother, that's not what we're doing here. Yeah. Now, this is who I am. This is how I like to be pursued. This is how we communicate. And this is what we're going to do. This is what we're not going to do. And then we can go from there.
Wonderful. Keisha, that's good. That's good. Yeah, Keisha.
Doing too much. I'm at a place, okay, you want this to be real. Before Christ, date you 1 week, 2 weeks, kiss, hug, do all the stuff, that comes after that, even if it led to sex. On this side, with Jesus, I don't want you touching me before a proper time because I'm choosing to be holy. I don't know how that goes over with everybody, okay? But Keisha has made a stance. And before you get the benefit, before you lay down with me and get the benefits of marriage, i.e. sex, i.e. love making, you're gonna have to have a ring on this. And we're gonna have to have a covenant established. We're not gonna, and really at this point, you know, it may depend on your comfort level, but I love Jesus, but my flesh don't love Jesus. Okay? If you touch me the wrong way, I'm not gonna be thinking, let's pray in the spirit, okay?
Hallelujah.
Yes.
Preach, daughter.
I'm real.
Preach, daughter.
I'm real. Me and God have been walking together for too long. Thank you for leading me to Jesus, Pastor Mike. I give you your credit for that because you teach us how to walk in those areas. But I mean, y'all, I'm real. Don't be, if you rub up against me the wrong way at this point. So really, you need to keep a certain distance, okay?
Yes,
you may not like that. You may not like it, but I'm talking about Keisha. But I have a standard because I'm telling you what the Bible says. God says, flee fornication, okay? 1 Corinthians 7:2, let every man have his own wife and every woman have her own husband. So you get those benefits when you put a ring on it, like Michael K. said. That's doing the most. Okay.
That's Minister Keisha
Wait.
Sharp.
Shanice got a question, and I'm gonna jump in after you. What you got?
You want to jump in after me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jump rope. All right, okay. No, this is like a serious question though. So how do you go about setting those boundaries, right? How do you do that boldly without feeling uncomfortable with somebody? You know, maybe, I'm asking anyone, maybe you don't feel comfortable setting those boundaries because of the way society is. And you know, spending the night is the quickest and easiest option. Or somebody that might work a lot. You know, you might get off work late, so us hanging out is us watching a movie at 9 o'clock and I'm asleep by 10. You know what I'm saying? So how do you set those boundaries with someone to move forward in that direction?
Let me get in this. I think that, because I'm going to respond to what you said, and I'm going to answer this question. I really think that we as people are facing an identity crisis. Because we're seeking approval. Like right now, the biggest hustle is Facebook, Instagram, because we literally checking our phones like multiple times a day seeking for approval, whether it's it's a retweet, or something like that. So don't define yourself in a relationship by how other people view you, whether a mate chooses to accept you or looking for that affirmation because you're selling yourself short. I tell people often, even I learned this lesson myself, you have to get grounded in what God says about you. When you understand what he says about you and the affirmations in that, no one can devalue you, no one can trick you or talk you into doing something that should not happen. And to kind of go back to what you said, I think when we get here, we talk about relationships like we're dating and all of a sudden there's marriage. We need to start talking about the in-between seasons. We need to start talking about the steps in the communication and having this, and when we talk about communication, it's like having difficult dialogues, like for real, like, you know, how did you grow up? How did your parents argue? Like, how did that impacted you? Because we all carry some type of baggage or some type of relationship PTSD. I know I'm like hogging the mic, so I'm gonna chill. But that's just something to think about, and that's something like I challenge our churches to do. And also not just talking to women, but talking to men, because men as leaders, as spiritual head of like the household, we're not having these conversations about vulnerability and what it means and spiritual maturity and how to lead and how to wrestle our own demons before we just jump out there and just be like, I like you, you're great, marry me.
Okay. Well, wonderful. So this leads us into our next question. And this is centered around contentment. And I would really love to hear everyone's viewpoint on this one, because we can put on this facade like we're so happy as singles, and then we go home and we're crying, we're mad at God, we hate the world, and all these different things. But Keisha, I'm going to direct this question to you. What is contentment, and how do we walk in it while we're single?
I'll speak from a personal perspective. I tend to think that as singles, let's start here. God has placed a purpose on each person's life, okay? So the first thing that we want to do is get with God and find out what our purpose is. Sometimes we grow up thinking that there's love in marriage and all of that kind of stuff. So if to get ourselves out of that train of thought, I think that you throw yourself into your purpose. And I think once you throw yourself into your purpose, all the rest of that, God is going to make the rest of that available to you. Contentment. Contentment is accepting where you are. I'm single. I'm 46. I'm a divorcee. I accept that I am not in a relationship right now. I accept that I am not married right now. Would I like to be married? Absolutely. But I'm content because I am doing what I believe God has called me to do, okay? I'm not sitting around waiting. And another thing is I'm not allowing my state to define me. I allow God to define me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that? Ephraim, you want to add to that?
I remember my senior year in college, my roommate was his best friend, and they were when I was taking out and I just thinking how they were so close, I had a relationship. So I remember it was my first year in I came here to Chapel, didn't know a lot of people initially.
After the singles trip on Labor Day weekend that following year that I started meeting a lot of people. And so that first year I was in Birmingham, September, 1 year to the following September, I didn't know a lot of people, but I was getting to know God better. And so as a result of doing that, I never felt that sense of loneliness again because I developed my relationship with Him. I've never felt that since that senior year in college. So I think if we are genuinely developing that relationship with Him, then when we do go to that marital stage, then it's just adding to something that's already good. It's not like we're seeing this this spouse as someone who's saving us from loneliness. We're saving us from this state of misery. We should already have a good, exciting life, a good, well-pleasing life, a life we're throwing ourselves into our purpose. And so we should have that contentment because of our relationship with Him, and then we just add to something that's already good to make it even better.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to ask you a question, Mr. Dantrell. This is a twofold question, right? This is twofold. You can handle it. I believe you can handle it. Okay, how active, because you know, some of us, we want to date, but the only place we go is to church and work. So how active should you be in the dating process, and in what ways do you prepare yourself for marriage? So how active, that's question number one, how active should you be in the dating process, and in what ways do you prepare yourself for marriage?
Okay. So I get a minute for each, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to be active in dating, if that's where you are, then you should place yourself, I believe, being at church is fine, but go to things that will bring about like-minded people. If you go to networking events, go shopping, go to sporting events, anything that you like, you should find an environment where you will find other people that like what you like. I know they say opposites attract, but find somebody that has some like-minded things that you like to do. Now, I put this disclaimer out there with that. If you like to do some ratchet stuff, don't go to those places and do that.
Define ratchet.
Don't be at Platinum thinking you're gonna find the man of your dreams. I'm just gonna say it. Now I'm not from Birmingham, but I used to come here a lot when I was a youth, and they're like, the Platinum still popping? That's where y'all go? Okay. Well, that kind of thing. If you're into, let's be real. If you have an addiction problem, don't go someplace where that's going on. If you have some issues, don't work that out first and find things that are productive, things that you may want to do, but just haven't gotten into it yet that's productive. You will find somebody that may be just starting out like you are. So find things that are productive and get in that space. That's the first question. Second question, can you give it to me again?
In what ways do you prepare yourself for marriage?
All right. How many guys in here?
Guys?
Bruh, don't do that. Don't do that.
About 3 of y'all.
Who God need to be in here is in here. And I'm going to say this. So I'm going to speak from a man's perspective. And I'm going to speak from it from 3 different stages of life. And I didn't say this in the beginning, but I am divorced. And I'm single now. And I'm 42. So, I forget. So let's say you're young, you're just coming out of school and you're going to college or you're in the military, you're young. This is an opportunity to find mentors. The first stage, you're always gonna have mentors, but find a mentor and find someone who is helping you to make smart financial decisions. Smart financial decisions. As a man, find out how to get your credit on track before it goes off track. Learn how to balance your checkbook or balance your online banking. Find out how does financing work? How does amortization work? How does wealth building work? How does debt management work? All those things as a youth. That way, when you are in your 40s, you're not going to the credit repair people trying to get stuff fixed. Second, when you get, maybe you're in your 30s. Maybe you are just out of a marriage, or maybe you've been dating for a while. Now is the time that if you have some issues or you develop some issues from some bad decisions or bad breaks in life, now it's time to seek restoration from those things. If you have addictions to like pornography, if you have addictions to drugs, alcohol, if you have addiction to the club, this is the time, if you picked up some bad habits, be intentional about fixing those things in you. And when I say fixing, I mean taking it to God in prayer and fixing it. Finding mentors, again, and find a mentor in each area. Your financial mentor may not be your spiritual mentor, may not be your physical fitness mentor, may not be your education mentor, but get somebody who is being successful and where you want to be successful. And people love to help. And they say, hey, I need some help in this area. Would you mind being my mentor? Would you mind if we just touch base here and there? So then there's that. But maybe you're old head. And old fools used to be young fools. Now it's time to be real with yourself. And I had to have that conversation with myself. This is where I'm struggling. This is where I need to be financially. And notice I said, this is where I need to be spiritually. This is where I need to be with my health. Because now, as a black man, you're 40-something, now you got challenges. You may have challenges in your health. You may have challenges with family, with children that you may have. Getting those things in order first. Now notice, everything that I said had nothing to do with the person that God has called to be your wife. Because if you don't get those things straight at whatever stage of life you in, you ain't ready for them no way.
Okay.
So
give him a round of applause.
that's what I preached to myself before I said to anybody else, but that's what I think that you would have to do. Amen.
Thank you.
Maria, I'll jump in. It was a two-part question. The first was, how actively involved should we be, or should we just wait on God? I think that we do have a part to play. It's one thing for me to pray to God for a job, but there's a part that I have to play in that I have to apply, I have to submit resumes. And so I think our part is, I think the best spouses come from strong friendships. And so placing myself in an environment where I can build friendships, locally traveling, I think is a part of my part. What could I do to prepare myself? I think while I'm single, developing the skills that I'll need in a relationship. I know here at Faith Chapel, we have people from all over who apply for different roles, employment roles, but not everyone who applies for a role here on staff has the skill set to fill that role, even though there's a desire there. Well, I think that there are a lot of people who would apply for dating roles or spousal roles in our lives, but they haven't taken the time to develop the skill sets that would be needed to achieve success in that. And so a part of my responsibility in preparing myself is developing those skill sets, communication skill sets, relational skill sets, so that when I'm applying for a role in a person's life, I got the skill set to walk it out.
Wonderful, wonderful. This is our next question, and this is for our divorcees, because sometimes, when you get engaged and you start telling everybody you done met God done told you this your husband and all this different stuff. Then you get married and then you get a divorce. Then you start asking yourself, did I miss God? So I'm going to direct this question to you, Pastor Michael K. Does it mean that you miss God just because your marriage ends in divorce?
That's a great question. No, I don't think it means that you miss God. All throughout Scripture, we see people who God gave them something, but they didn't necessarily keep it. But it didn't mean that because they lost it, God didn't give it to them. I think a part of making relationships work, especially marriage, is both the husband and the wife have a responsibility And we only fulfill those responsibilities to the degree of our maturity level. So my ability to fulfill my responsibilities on the communication side to Michelle was limited in the beginning because I was immature. And so if you have one side or another side who they're not committed to growing, they're not committed to maturing, then they can't fulfill their responsibilities. And if you don't have two sides working, I think we should give people grace. I wasn't perfect, none of us are. But if you don't have one or both sides committed to working it, then those responsibilities can fall short and the relationship won't work. But I don't think that that means that God didn't put you together.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now I'm going to ask this question, and I would like for everyone to answer this question right here. We all have grown and progressed over the years and learned some things relationally. But what relationship advice would you have given yourself 5 years ago in this moment? What relationship advice would you have given yourself 5 years ago in this moment? We're going to start with Ephraim, and then we're going to come around.
I think I'd say, in light of dealing with the departure of a spouse and then getting into God bring me someone new, He's a God of restoration, to just stick close with Him because obviously He had to see me through that challenging situation. And then it was entrusting Him, not looking for someone else, but He brought someone else along when I least expected it. And so just not leaning to my own understanding, but relying on Him to help me navigate through situations, navigate through getting started again. And so just a matter of reliance on Him and not trusting in what I might have been thinking at the time, because I wasn't actually specifically looking for someone, but He had plans that I wasn't aware of at the time, but that He brought it about in a different way than I was expecting. So it was a matter of trusting Him, not leaning to my own understanding.
Okay, thank you. Dontrell?
What I would say to myself 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I was watching my marriage deteriorate. So can I be real quick?
Yes.
Okay. I was watching my marriage deteriorate. And in essence, I would tell my 5-year-old previous self to stay away from the whale. Because I married a whale. She wasn't big, but God gave me something to do, a purpose, and I didn't want to follow it. So like Jonah, I hopped in the whale. Good person, but she was a whale. So I would tell that 5-year-old person, don't go in the whale. Don't go somewhere where you know God doesn't want you to be.
That's good.
And I know, like, we've been real kind of spiritual, but I'm going to break it down simple, especially as a guy. You know, God's purpose and what's God's will. Some of you just, as a man, I know you just want to win. You just want to be successful in life. And that desire to win, that's God's purpose tugging at you. And that's where you got to seek Him to win. So that 5 years ago, when my marriage was crumbling, I went to my pastor at the time. I said, Pastor, my marriage is crumbling. My wife is doing this. I'm trying to do that. And everything that I know is falling apart. What am I supposed to do with my marriage? And that pastor told me, are you ready to give your life completely to God? And I got mad at that pastor. Because I'm talking about my marriage. He's telling me to give my life completely. I was going to church. I was playing in church. I was doing all those things. But I didn't give myself completely. And because I didn't give myself completely, I wasn't winning, and I was attached to a whale. And it took that whale to spit me out, divorce, to get back to where God wanted me to be. And once you attach yourself to God and find out what He wants you to do, and give yourself completely to Him. And you'll learn more about that later on tonight. But that is what I would tell my 5-year-old self. Let it go and give it to God, and you will win.
Thank you. Thank you. Shanice?
5 years ago, I was 20 years old. I was in college, and I thought that I was probably going to meet my husband in college, probably going to get engaged around graduation time. get married a year and a half after that, kids by 25, you know, all of this and that before I'm 30, right? So I definitely would tell myself that there is more to life than relationships. Being a girlfriend isn't, or being a wife isn't the only thing that God wants to give you. Because I think that a lot of times as women, we center ourselves around that. We're either looking for a man, we're looking to be looked for by men, or, you know, I just want to be a wife. Well, why not me, God? And I think we miss out on so many different things. You know, a queen is not a queen when she gets a king. A queen is a queen because God made her a queen. You know what I'm saying? So you have to build up your own queendom, your own castle, and bring something more to the table than just breasts and thighs. So that's what I would tell myself, that there's more to life than just relationships.
Thank you, Keisha.
So that was good. So 5 years ago, I was also at the tail end of a marriage. What would I tell myself? Continue to just enjoy life, okay? A mistake does not define you. A hard place doesn't define you, but keep on going with God. Live, travel, continue to work on yourself, do you, and be happy. We get one shot at life. I'm gonna give it the best shot that I have, regardless of what state I'm in.
Excellent.
Mine is simple. Maximize your season. You know, I think sometimes we get into this habit of singleness where we are so focused on what we don't have that we miss what's right here in front of us. So take advantage of those moments. Like, read books, because you are what you feed your spirit. Travel. Go back and get that extra degree if you want to get that degree. Start building your career. And I'm telling you this because I want you to make room for the blessing that you're about to receive. I think about this in terms of like the story in the Bible where, you know, the oil in the jars and everything. You know, you got to expand your capacity to receive the many blessings. I think some people do not realize how much is in store for them because they're so busy focusing on what's ahead and they don't make room. They're not taking the time to make room for it. And also, from a male's perspective, and I've seen this happen to guys, I'm not gonna call one of my boys out, but it sucks as a man to finally get that woman that you really want and you're not ready to receive her because you have not been putting in the work yourself to receive her.
Mr. Kenya.
Pastor Michael Keck.
Yeah, I would tell the five-year self to worry less. I think, especially 5 years ago, I worried a lot about a lot of small things. How would the outcome turn out? Now that I'm past them, it wasn't as deep as I thought it was in the moment, but in the moment I was stressing. So do your best, but worry less. Do your best and just live with the outcome.
Wonderful. We have one more question. Give them a round of applause. Absolutely.
Oh, snap.
We have one more question. Oftentimes, selfishness in relationships kills the relationship. Talk to us about the gift of giving of oneself selflessly in order to strengthen the relationship. Anyone can take that, Shanice.
I think relationships are better when you can look outside of yourself. You're not always the victim. You know, that person didn't always do something to you. Sometimes you did something to that person. So when you get with somebody, being selfless means, okay, yeah, we're here, we're arguing, but I'm sorry because I did look at you kind of crazy because you was touching my fries. But I wanted those fries. But baby, I understand that you were hungry, so you can have some of my fries. Or something like that. You know, just putting yourself in a position to always be willing to grow and always be willing to take responsibility for what it is that you did in that moment and not just constantly passing the blame on the other person.
Wonderful. We got time for one more comment.
I'll jump in. When I think about being selfless, I mean being selfless with knowledge, teaching each other, because you're trying to find somebody that is willing to take the path in the journey of life with you. So you're looking for a life partner. So be selfless with the knowledge. Don't be selfless with every bit and facet of yourself. Because what I think was plaguing us, again, like I said in the beginning, you got to set a standard. And when you set the standard, you set boundaries. You have to know how much you're willing to invest into an individual before you say, okay, that's enough, I need to walk away. We got to stop romanticizing marriages and thinking that if I keep working with this person, I keep building this person, then it's just going to magically work out and I'm just going to be blessed in all these other areas. No, some things are just, you you may need to get some counseling, brother. And you may need to be in church. You need to work on yourself, because there are a lot of us who are out here looking for somebody when we haven't found ourselves.
Ooh, that's good. Ooh, that's good right there. Ooh. That is a great way to close out. And if I can say anything else, sometimes we think we need somebody in order to be whole, when in actuality, we should seek to just work on ourselves. Can you give our panel a round of applause? Thank you all so very much. Thank you so very much.